Good morning. It's good to be with you this morning. Stir each other up to love and good works. I could have a problem with the time. You see, we're starting at 15 after, and it's at 10:30 when I started last Cassis, so I can just go forever. And there must be a reason you do this, is to get everybody to stop in time to get the service finished. So if I start to go past, I need to see like this or cut or something like that, because I know we've got food afterwards. But it's good to be with you. Our series based around overcoming temptation. Hopefully we can give you some inroads in on how to overcome temptation. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We encourage you to come back tonight. We're going to be talking about preparing for battle. As you think about overcoming temptation, then we need to go to the source, and that's Satan. Let's go over to 1 Peter chapter 5 with an opening that everyone is probably very knowledgeable of in 1 Peter chapter 5. Let's pick up with verses 6. It says, "Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him, steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world." Satan is our adversary, and Satan is out to consume those that are believers. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 12 for just a moment. Revelation chapter 12 may give us some insight that some believe has to do with Satan. And we're going to pick up with Revelation chapter 12, and we're going to go to verse 7 in Revelations. "And war broke out in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who have accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. I propose to you this morning that we have a battle against Satan, and there's been a thought process that as Satan was cast to this earth, that maybe a third of the angelic force was cast with him, because Satan does not have the ability to be as God, but with this angelic force that he can entice you. Let's go over to Ephesians chapter 6 for just a moment. Ephesians chapter 6. We'll pick up with verse 10, which leads into the armor of God. But let's look at the first couple of verses here, beginning with verse 10. "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles or the schemings of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So our fight, and especially as believers, because each one of you as a believer is who Satan has the crosshairs in, because anyone that is not a believer, he doesn't worry about them because he has those. It's you who are the children of God that he's after. His war is against you. Him and his spiritual host of wickedness is who entices you, who wants you. He's come to make war against you because he's only here for a short amount of time. So this morning, as we think about Satan, we need to know our adversary. Now, you think about the adversary. With biblical creation, we think that the world is about 6,000 to 10,000 years old, but we usually agree around 6,000 years old. Satan, as he was cast to this earth, and he's been given all authority on the earth, as he told Jesus as he was there during the temptation after 40 days in the wilderness, then he has the first temptation that he uses against Eve and Adam. And he's been working on that, finessing that for years. But a lot of us think we can do battle with Satan. A lot of you know who Michael Jordan is, right? All right, so let's just imagine Michael Jordan was in his prime. And let's just imagine that Michael Jordan had been working on his craft for 6,000 years. Think about that. Michael Jordan has been shooting shots, working for 6,000 years. He's been finessing his craft, and he's at the top of his game. You're 21 years old, I can take you on. You're 40 years old, I can take you on. And then some of us, as we get older, we think we can take him on. No. I would dare say that almost every one of you in this assembly have battle scars from taking Satan on, because Satan is good at what he does. All you have to do is look around. He's good at what he does. He has taken down Elijah at the height. There he did battle at Mount Carmel, and not long after that he's running and he's hiding. He takes Samson, a man of great physical strength, and he seduces him. He takes David, who is a man after God's own heart. He seduces him. He takes Peter, who said, I will never forsake you, Lord. And he seduces him. Satan is powerful. And basically, he has a game plan. And that's what I want to talk about this morning, is his game plan. Let's go over to James for just a moment. James chapter 1. We'll pick up with verse 13. Let no one say when he is tempted, I'm tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is enticed, when he's drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Do not, verse 16, do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. I'm going to tell you, what basically James is saying is, and James is the half-brother of Jesus, and James says, I'm going to tell you what Satan's game plan is. I want you to know what it is. And it basically revolves around the way he has seduced people all through the Old Testament. That's the reason we read the Old Testament, is so we can see Satan and how he works. Joshua's ready to go into Jericho, and the angel of the Lord comes to him and says, you're to go into Jericho, but when the walls fall down, you're not to take of the accursed things, and that silver and that brass and gold, you're to take those things, and they're to be for the Lord. And then there's a gentleman by the name of Achan. You remember Achan? He takes some things. And because of that, the children of God, when they get ready to go to Ai, which is a smaller city, they are defeated. And Joshua says, why? It says, because you've got sin in the camp. And they bring forward every tribe, and Joshua asked Achan, who says, I'm guilty. I saw, I coveted, and I took. I saw, I coveted, and I took. Satan's used that game plan ever since Adam and Eve. Look. Now watch what James says. In his writings, to make this simple, he says, this is the plan of Satan. Stop. Look. Touch. And embrace. And when you embrace, there's death. Stop. Look. Touch. And embrace. Now you think about every time that you've gone into a temptation, how it works. See, Satan can't make you do anything that you don't want to do. You've been promised there's a way out. Let's look at that. Look over at Hebrews for just a moment. Look at Hebrews, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Verse 13, Paul says, no temptation is overtaking you except such as common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape, but you may be able to bear it. Satan cannot make you do anything that you don't want to do, but what Satan does is he entices you. And that's what his angelic force does. They entice you. I want you to stop. There's nothing wrong with stopping. I'll stop. I want you to look at that. Just look at it. There's really nothing wrong with looking, right? But now what happens? I want to touch, and I want to embrace. Watch it. David should have been at war. It's the spring of the year. David should have been at the war. He decided to stay in his palace and enjoy being king. He gets on top of the rooftop, looks. He stops first, and then he looks. And there's Bathsheba. Bring her to me. Now he touches. And then he embraces. And there comes the sin. That's Satan's game plan. Let me just tell you, James is laying it out. Stop, look, touch, and embrace. And you're going to know exactly what Satan's going to do, and you still can't stop. You still can't stop. How many times have you been involved in a sin and you know you're not supposed to? And I love how Satan works. Just get a little bit closer. Just get a little bit closer. And here's Satan. Satan is the master fisherman. We got any fishermen in the audience? I couldn't get people to raise their hand in class. I think they got armitis. Look here. Got any fishermen in the audience? Yeah, we got some fishermen up here. When you go fishing, the patient fisherman is the one who catches the fish. Cast that line out there. Take my time. You're going to be mine. That's Satan. Satan's got all the time in the world. He doesn't care if he catches you today, tomorrow, next week, next year, or in 20 years. I'm going to start planting the seeds. And I'm going to start reeling it in. And you know that you're not supposed to mess with it, but he says, look here. Come on here and get you some of this. That's how good he is. So how do we overcome knowing that, knowing how powerful sin is and how powerful Satan is? One of the things that Satan does is, I don't believe Satan has the ability when you're born to know what your weaknesses are. I believe he has to watch. He's not all powerful as God is. I think he watches your life. And if we were to take all of us in this room, there are going to be some of us, almost all of us have a weakness. We've got a weakness in our life that's hard to control. Some of us have several weaknesses, and some of us have a multiplicity of weaknesses. And Satan watches us to decide what that weakness is, because some of our weaknesses are not even close to being the same. But Satan watches. I I want to take a moment and just think about some of the weaknesses that we may have in our life. One is lying and cheating. And you say, well, I don't lie and I don't cheat. Well, what about your income tax? How many of you have that little eraser? That's just one more zero. Let me get rid of that. That helps me. How many of you own a business? It's pretty easy to lie in a business. Let's just kind of cover the truth up a little bit with that. Satan uses that. One of the things that happens is very prevalent in the church is gossip. Okay, and then with social media now, we can let everybody know. Let's air everything out. We got Facebook. We got X. Look here, I want everybody to know what's going on at East Main. Let's just put it right there where everybody can see it. We've got women and men working together in the same place, adultery. We've got people in second marriages, third marriages, fourth marriages, and the Hebrew writer says, let the marriage bed stay undefiled. But what happens is, you're married to your wife, and she's trying to take care of your children, and she doesn't put on all that smelly stuff every morning, and she doesn't look the best she can every morning. But when I go to work and I go to get my coffee, I turn around, and there's a young lady, and I says, good morning. And she smells better. She's starting to look a little bit better. And before long, you're breaking yourself down. Enticement happens with that. Something that's very prevalent in our world, and especially is probably going to ruin the younger generation, is pornography. Statistics on pornography say that, you know when the biggest day that people view pornography is? Sunday. Think about that. Sunday is the most hits are on pornography sites on Sunday. That's kind of disgusting, isn't it? And what makes that even worse is that now young people are getting pornographic material right on their phone. All you have to do is get on your phone, and you can get whatever you want just about on your phone. Remember, when I was young, I told this morning I'm 66 years old, we had to lie, cheat, and steal to get pornography when we were younger. But now it's readily available. Just punch in the wrong number and the wrong name, and you've got something. Satan's using that. He's using that to tear apart families. He's using that to tear apart young men and young women as they look at all this stuff. What about recreation? Now, preacher, now you're starting to step on my feet. What about fishing? Oh, don't go there. What about those softball games and all those AAU basketball games and all those football games and all that kind of stuff? Preacher, there's nothing wrong with all that recreation. It's good. People can grow physically. I live on Betty Ford Road, and I go in about every Sunday morning early from my young professional class, and I get donuts from Donut Country. We don't eat them in the sanctuary. We got a fellowship hall. I don't want to be condemned. I pass by McKnight Field. Everybody know where McKnight Field is? There are more people at McKnight Field than there are at this church in Las Casas and North Boulevard put together. Because people think it's a higher priority to be there than to be here. No, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with fishing. It's a good time to get out and to connect with God and spiritually and physically out when you're fishing. It's preparing for a game. Everything is good about that. But see, what has happened is that becomes a priority. We'll miss times to worship together and take our children somewhere else, and then we can barely get them to church. If that's the case, something's wrong. Something's wrong. We are teaching our children the priority is to be a better player, not to be here with brothers and sisters in Christ. You need to reevaluate that. Satan has enticed you to do something you don't need to be doing. It's 1968. My father, for some of you don't know, was a minister. He started churches in South Carolina, North Carolina. It's North Augusta, South Carolina. And I'm 10 years old. I'm playing on a championship baseball team. My father's the assistant coach. I had a rain out because very rare. Remember back when we were younger, a lot of you that are my age, we didn't have games on Wednesday night. We didn't have games on Sunday. We didn't do that. But see, we've had a whole change in our culture to do that religiously now. So here we are. We're playing the game to get ready for the championship game. And we had a rain out, so we had to play it on Wednesday night. It's tied up. I won't ever forget this. It's tied up. I am on third base with 2 outs, getting ready to make the winning run to put us to go to the championship game. My father goes over and calls timeout. Oh. Take that young man off of third and let's put a pinch runner in. Why? I'm getting ready to score. Because we're going to church, son. Why? So you know how you are. I'm kicking and I'm getting the card, and usually I'm got catty-cathy after a game, and here I've sold up in the back seat. I've sold up. I'm not talking to anybody. He looks back at me at the mirror and looks back at the back seat and sees me sold up. He said, son, one of these days you're going to understand what I did and what priorities are. But see, Satan is enticing us. Satan is enticing us. And then there's addictive drugs like drinking and smoking and being a workaholic, a lot of us. And I am a self-professed workaholic. Many years ago, I went to the Lord and I said, you know how much I love to work. I love to work, and I do love to work. I'm just going to tell you. I'm a sick man. And I said, what can I do for the weekends that would make you happy? He said, I'll fix it. You'll start preaching. So now I fill my weekends with the Lord's work. But a lot of us take workaholic and we have to miss because we got work, our priorities off, because Satan has enticed us. There'll be a lot of you in this audience, because I dare say, let me just ask this question. I have forgotten what the numbers are. Patrick Jones, I don't know if any of you know Patrick Jones or not, but he usually gives me the lowdown on who comes back on Sunday night. And I think, are your Sunday night numbers less than they are this morning? Is that the case? We're retaining about at least half coming back on Sunday night? I'm going to find out. Why don't you come back on Sunday night? Well, let me tell you what's going to happen. See, it's been raining. And now what's going to happen is the sun's going to come out this afternoon. I got to work in my yard. I can't come back out here and be with y'all on Sunday night. I got things to do. I got to wash my car. You just do not understand how they work me to death at work, and I've got to go home, and I got to get on the couch. I got to get some shut-eye so I can get ready to go back to work on Monday. You just don't understand what it's like. I just don't want to come back. I got other things to do. That's Satan. Go to Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to start talking about ways to overcome. Ways to overcome. In Ephesians chapter 6, it's the whole armor of God. And we know the armor. One verse that we don't talk about much is verse 18. We've put the armor on. So we know as believers that we're going to go to battle every morning. So we're going to get up, we're going to put all this armor on, and now we're ready to go into battle. I want to talk about ways to overcome. Verse 18 is a way to overcome. Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for the saints. I want to submit to you, and this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about practical application for how you can overcome Satan. And one of the things that I submit to you is the fact that we pray. I think it's one of the most underutilized pieces of equipment that we have. A lot of us don't pray like we should pray. A lot of us are not prayer warriors. Listen, Jesus is getting ready to go into the Mount of Olives, and he's getting ready to approach the Lord 3 times. If there's any way you can make this cup pass from me, would you please find another way? He goes back and he finds Peter and the sons of Zebedee asleep. And he says to them in Matthew, watch and pray what? Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. So I'm going to submit for you this morning is one of the greatest ways to overcome temptation is to be a prayer warrior. Paul talks about the fact that you should pray without ceasing. Pray, it's impossible for you to pray all day long, but to have a prayerful attitude is something you need to. I get up in the morning time, and I before my family gets going, and I pray. I'm getting ready. I'm a student. I'm getting ready to go to school. I'm a single person. I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm going to get up and I'm going to ask the Father for help. I need help for this day. Because that's what you're asking for. You have a Father. Ephesians chapter 1 says you've been blessed with every spiritual blessing through Jesus Christ. And part of that is the fact that you are a child of God, and I can actually ask my Father for help. Father, I need help. Jesus said in Matthew 7:7, asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knocking the door shall be open. All I have to do is ask, do you think God's going to turn me down for asking Him for help to be stronger during this day, to be the kind of warrior that I need to be during the day? No, He's not. He's going to help you, and especially if you're asking. Especially if you're asking. Go over to Hebrews for just a moment. Hebrews chapter 4. Listen to the Hebrew writer, probably Paul. Let's pick up with verse 14. Seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Look at verse 16. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. So I can talk to the Father, and as you read through Thessalonians, as Paul writes to the church at Thessalonica, he says to give thanks in all things. So I'm getting up in the morning time, and I'm giving God the thanks for this day. I'm praying for my family. I'm a prayer warrior. Listen to me. Grandparents, the prayer that you utter in the morning may be the only prayer that your grandchildren get, or your children in a day's time. You ever thought about that? Your prayer that you offer as prayer protection on your family may be the only prayer that is uttered for them in a day's time. It is your responsibility as a grandparent and as a parent to be on your knees in the morning time, and I ask for a hedge of protection around my children from the time they are born to the time they leave this earth. That's part of what we do. We pray for those people. We ask for them to be protected. We ask for ourselves to be strengthened. You know Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I need power. And you have the greatest entity known to mankind in the universe. You have God Almighty who will empower you if you want to be empowered. Ephesians 3:20, now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. To Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. I need help. When you wake up, and let me just say this to you, you wake up in the morning time and you're not praying, you go into battle, let me tell you what's going to happen. There's going to be injuries. Somebody's going to get hurt because you're not praying. And it may be your children because you haven't prayed for them. Maybe your grandchildren because you haven't prayed for them. I can see the clock on the wall is starting to wind down. Stop, look, touch, embrace. The first weapon that we have to use against Satan after we put the armor on is we've got a prayerful attitude. I'm talking to the company commander all day long. I'm starting to look. I'm thinking about touching. Father, I need help. Empower me, please. I know my weakness. I've got to go someplace that I know I don't need to go. Father, I need help. I need help. Help me with that. Let me tell you something else about prayer. It's the greatest barometer of where you are spiritually. How many of you prayed this morning? How many of you prayed yesterday? How many of you prayed every day last week? I'm not talking about just for your meals. I'm talking about prayer to the Lord for help, for direction, for wisdom, for guidance, for strength. I want to tell you this, in your life right now where you're sitting, if you haven't prayed for a week or so, you're probably touching. You're probably touching. You've gone from stop, look, and now you're wanting to touch because you know what sin does? It starts to separate you from God. And you can't in good conscience be talking to the Father and asking for things and then being double-minded and committed sin on the other side of that. So what happens is a lot of times when we're thinking about doing something or we're involved in something that we don't need to be involved in, a lot of times we quit praying because it makes us feel guilty. We don't want to pray about it anymore. So one of the biggest barometers in your life is look at your life this morning. When was the last time you prayed? Because if it's been a while since you prayed, I'm going to guarantee you there's something going on in your life. There's something going on in your life. Stop, look, touch, and embrace. Where are you this morning? Make a self-evaluation. This is one of the reasons that we meet together on the first day of the week. We meet around the table, which I think is the focus of the reason we come together. We reflect, we remember, and we look at what we're doing in our lives. We make a self-evaluation and get things straightened up to get ready to start the week as we meet around the Lord's table. This morning, if there's any one of you that finds yourself involved in something you don't need to be involved in, it's the greatest thing about us meeting together as the family of God. James chapter 5 talks about it. We confess our sins one to another that we should be healed. And the effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. You see how prayer works? Now you're ready to get back into battle one more time. If there's any way we can help you this morning, we ask you to come. While together we stand and sing.